So one thing that I will tell you from the start is, yes, this is a sponsored session, so yes, it kind of is expected that I will give a sales pitch of some sort, but I'm going to try and keep that to a minimum, because I don't want to just tell you guys, hey, go purchase our products, we're awesome, even though that's kind of true, I guess. So who am I? I'm Brandon Haugen. I'm a product manager from Datalogics. I've been in the position that I'm in for the last 7 months or so I'm still new at this, kind of starting to learn more of the role, and I've got some mentors that are at the back of the room, so they get to tell me all the things that I do wrong today. So at Datalogics, I'm responsible for the PDF Java Toolkit and our PDF WebAPI offering. So our PDF Java Toolkit is a all Java-based PDF processing toolkit, similar to iText. Hi, Bruno. And then we have a PDF WebAPI, which is what I'll be talking about today, and it's a RESTful set of web services, and we'll get more into that as we go. So Datalogics, we're an Adobe partner. We're a small software company. We've been around for a while. We definitely just build tools for software developers to work with PDFs. So that's that. So what are we going to talk about today? So today we're going to talk about challenges with PDFs, specifically with PDF forms. We're going to talk about what we've seen, what we've experienced, and kind of our thoughts on PDF forms and how we work with them and how hopefully it will help you guys. And if you hear Joel at the back of the room, he'll be providing commentary as I go to remind me of things that either I missed or provide his insights as well. Before we even get started, let's just get one thing straight. I'm going to focus on PDF forms, meaning acro forms, not those crazy XFA forms that cause all sorts of problems for people. So how many people in here have worked with PDF forms before, and how many have worked with... Awesome. See? Yeah. Raise your hands. So how many have worked with XFA forms? How many of you love XFA forms? So we're not going to talk about XFA forms today. We're going to stick with acro forms because they're nice and easy and simple, and our tools work really nice with them. If you want to talk more about XFA forms, go see the panel that Joel has tomorrow at 3 talking about XFA forms specifically. So that'll be fun. Yes. So forms. Forms are used everywhere. I've gone through a number of life changes recently. I bought a house and had a daughter, and I've gone through a whole bunch of PDF forms. They're everywhere in life now. Doctor's visits, mortgages, schools, governments, all of those things. So they're really important. So yeah, everywhere. They get used everywhere, is kind of my point. So some of the challenges that we've seen is, how do you know when you give out a PDF form where that person is actually going to work with it? Where do you expect your users to be? And how is that changing over the last 5 years? One of the things we've seen is different operating systems. So there's been a number of different operating systems that have come out or have had to add PDF form support that hasn't had to in the past. Every new version of Windows or OS X or iOS, BlackBerry, even though they're falling down around us. Android is another place. All of these places have to kind of catch up where they haven't had users looking to work with PDFs, but are now moving towards that direction because that's just where users are moving. All of these things get in the way. To go with different operating systems, you have different form factors. You've got people using tablets and mobile phones and large screen devices. You've got people presenting them on projectors. You've got a number of different places that you wouldn't have typically seen a PDF form before. Windows was a huge place for the longest time, but now as people are moving away from traditional PCs to these more mobile platforms, it becomes more important that forms can function nicely on these devices. You don't want to just say, oh, yes, sorry, users, my PDF. You have to fill this out on Windows. That's not a stance that people can take as much anymore. So we've started figuring out how to get those to work nicely on mobile devices and mobile form factors. So you have a number of different PDF viewers as well. You've got Acrobat, you've got Foxit, you've got Nitro, you've got Apple Preview, and the one I haven't played with yet is Microsoft's Edge. How many of you have heard of Microsoft Edge? All right, you guys are ahead of me. Awesome. How well does it work?
Not bad.
No?
Not bad.
How well does it handle forms?
Not great.
It doesn't break as bad as the others.
Yeah.
No?
That's something.
Yeah.
By
It's
all
not bad.
means,
It's
that's
not,
good.
it's not bad. Yeah.
All right. So you've got to figure out how your users are going to work with your forms. Where are they going to use them? You need to meet them where they should be, or where they're going to be using things. So that's kind of where our PDF Web API comes in. So Datalogics PDF Web API is a set of RESTful web services that allow you to work with PDFs from any language you want, and it just works across an HTTP connection. So it is callable from anything, anywhere, anytime, as long as it has an HTTP connection. How many of you have worked with web services before? Wow. I feel like I shouldn't even be presenting this. You guys are already doing these things, so this is really kind of just a sales pitch. Now I feel bad. So one of the capabilities that we have in our Web API that has been really interesting as of late is filling in forms with a PDF Web API. So we have a service to allow you to fill in forms. It accepts data as FDF, XFDF, comma separated, tab separated, or even as JSON. And it also supports generating barcode appearances for forms. So once you add a barcode into a form, you've got to make sure that you can generate that appearance so that way you can get the data back out when you scan it. So those are things that we've been working on recently. So some of the things that you can have in forms, though, is embedded business logic of sorts. So calculation scripts or formatting scripts or data validation scripts. Currently in our Web API offering, the calculation and formatting scripts are supported out of the box. So if you send us a PDF and ask to fill in the data, we'll run the calculation scripts and the formatting scripts to make sure that we respect those where other PDF viewers may not. A great example of that is actually Apple's preview. So if I open up my sample file here and I fill it in, and then I save, I don't know if I saved that. Yes, good. I save that and open it with Acrobat. You'll see things have kind of gotten a little wonky here, where it used to have a barcode and now it doesn't have the appearance of a barcode. It just has the data that was there. As well as it didn't fill in my calculated field down here at all. And now that calculated field has even lost its script. So it doesn't know that it should have calculated that field. All because all I did was fill in a document and save it with preview, and then try and open it elsewhere. So you've got all sorts of problems that people run into. Data validation scripts are something that we have been looking into. We're working on supporting it. It's just a complicated experience for what happens when validation of these scripts, or what happens when these scripts that do validation fail. It's kind of hard to design a user experience over a RESTful web service because you don't have a UI to just say, hey, this field was wrong or this field was wrong. You actually have to describe to your users in a way that they can understand programmatically what they should go back and do for their application. Joel, do you have anything more to say about validation?
Well, no, I mean, we have it working. I mean, we can run the validation scripts and we can run the equivalent of the keyboard input. We can validate that if a field's looking for numeric data, that numeric data is going in. If it's supposed to convert whatever the input is to uppercase, we can do that too. That part's not the problem. It's how to communicate when that fails back to the end user is really where we're trying to design this experience. So all of the scripts that normally run inside of a PDF file in Acrobat, we can run by proxy on the server, and eventually you will be able to know precisely what has happened to the data that you try to insert in the form.
Thank you. So actually, we'll stop there and we'll go back and do a short little demo So how many of you heard of Postman, since most of you have worked with web services? How many of you have heard of Postman? Anybody? All right, a few. So Postman is a nice little Chrome extension application that allows you to make web requests from within this UI. And I don't know how well it shows up there. Can you guys see that all right? Reasonable enough? All right. So I told you that format scripts and calculation scripts work in our web API. But I don't know if you guys should believe me. So let's actually show you. So I'm going to call our fill form service and just select our file for input that we should add. And select that. And I'm going to give it some values to fill in my form. And I guess I should show you the form before I go and fill it in. And I should remove the data that I put in there. Shoot. That's not going to work. It'll still work. I may have just screwed something up for myself. All right, let's see. So the data that I gave it was just my first name and last name to go fill in. And you have to know the names of the fields that you're working with. So you'll see that the capitalization in the JSON that I gave it actually matters, and it has to be the exact name of the form in the field, form in the document. So if you don't get that right, you're not going to get the expected results. But let's go ahead and send that and save the result and see what we got. And find that on my desktop. And wow, I got some really weird results because I screwed that up. Awesome. But you can still see that I filled in the form and I got the last name, and the barcode field is still incorrect. So let's do another one.
I think when you saved it from preview,
Yeah, I did. And now it's too broken.
This is a good example of why you actually need.
But I have a second copy somewhere, so let's get that second copy. So we'll do this one. It's the same exact form, just in a different place. So there we've extracted it again. But there, that time it actually worked because I sent the right file. Thank you.
Nice recovery.
Sometimes I'm able to do that. So now you see we actually got the calculation correct, and even in preview it displays correctly. So that's awesome. So that works.
Well, let's not brush over that particular fact. The form that you filled programmatically via the web API shows up correctly in preview.
Yes.
And it will show up consistently across all of the PDF viewers, regardless of their capability of understanding forms or formatting fields or any of the calculations that are in there. Which means you have a way to populate a PDF form and get a consistent user experience regardless of where that PDF file is being viewed.
So basically you're doing the fields are live, but you're flattening kind of the rest of the materials like the barcodes and stuff like that.
Well,
So in this one, it didn't even flatten it.
Yeah.
We can ask it to flatten it as well, but in this one, it's just generating the actual appearances on the server side and sticking them in the document before it returns.
I mean, that's what I mean. It's a static barcode. It's not a calculated barcode that was part of the original form. It's a static barcode, but the fields are still live.
it's calculated.
Yeah.
So if you change the values in here in preview, it's going to change the barcode?
No, it won't change the barcode in preview because preview can't do it. But if you went into Acrobat, that barcode is still active.
Okay.
The issue, or what we've done is because we've created the appearance on the server, when you open it in a viewer, as long as you're not modifying the form, that appearance will still be valid for that particular barcode.
Okay. That helps, thank you.
So if I keep adding things to the last name field, it will continue to update. Preview just doesn't handle that
So
nicely.
you mean you have updated the appearance of the form fields?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And since the embedded barcoded fields, their value is actually a calculation. There's no calculate tab there, but it's always calculated. This also demonstrates that we're able to run the calculations.
Yes.
Is your PDF file on server?
No, so
no, right.
what we
Why don't you
did
explain the
is
architecture?
in the web request, we attached the file as a form part. So we sent the file that we wanted to work with as part of the request to the server to have it give the file and the data to go stick in the file. So we haven't built anything to store the files locally on our server. It's just you send us the form and the data, and we merge the two together and send you back the result.
So when you say send me back the result, like what exactly is sent back to me? Is it a PDF file itself?
Yeah, so in this example, what we're actually sending back is a zip file. So I kind of glossed over that, so let's go back. So we send back a zip file because you can technically send us multiple records at the same time. And so let's say I sent a record for myself and a record for Joel. As part of the form data for this, you'd get back two separate PDFs, but it would be contained in one zip file. You can only return one file as part of the request. So we just zip them together and send you back a zip file. Yes?
What if the input was images? Like there was a whole form for like a JPEG?
So right now, our form service doesn't support images. We do have a separate service that allows you to add images to a PDF, though, not necessarily to a form.
So you could call those two services in succession and end up with a PDF file that has data populated in the form and an image placed on the document.
Okay, from the user's perspective, they supply an image in the form.
They supplied the, so if you wanted to populate the form and add an image, you would decide what order you want to do that.
Say there was a hole in the form for your
Yeah.
photo ID.
Yeah, so,
You put your photo ID in the hole
yep.
and then send it to you guys.
Well, what you would do is you'd send the form plus the data, it would populate the form, you'd get back a PDF file or a zip file, depending on how many records you sent up. You take the resulting of that first one where you fill in the data, and then you send it that new PDF file with the data in it, plus the image, and an options that's in JSON that describes precisely where you want that to be positioned on the page. So as long as you know where that hole is, and then it comes back and the PDF file's,
Then
it's got the image.
That's all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Just to clarify, because
Yeah.
there is an image field, but I forget whether that's just XFA or Acrobat also has an image field.
People use button faces for
Yeah,
placeholders.
No, that's
Yeah.
what was it,
Yeah. So
Was that Acrobat response?
Aquaforms will take a button face.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
But XFA does have an image
Acrobat.
attribute, yeah, or an image element. But again, we're not working with XFA.
Right.
Have a-
And right now, we
button
don't support
image
buttons
for
that's in the form
Aquaforms.
service.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
I actually have an example for the Java toolkit that does that.
Yeah, it's PDF.
Yeah.
Button has to be a PDF.
Well, we'll
All
take
right.
anything.
That's good.
So we also have a service that allows you to get data out of forms, because once you've gotten data in forms and people are sending back all these forms, you probably need some way to process those in a batch mode. And you could do that with Acrobat, but you can't do that on a server with Acrobat. So you can actually use another service of ours to get the data back out in XFDF or FDF. And soon, you'll get it back as JSON as well if you ask for it. While putting this presentation together and building an application, I went to go do that and found that working with FDF and XFDF in .NET is extremely difficult in these times. So we'll skip over that. So to work with PDF WebAPI, you can use it from any language. But one of the things that we've been doing from the beginning of this year until now is building an extension to Visual Studio 2015 that allows you to basically drag and drop our library into your application and start using it with a few lines of code. So with Visual Studio 2015, they added a thing called a connected service. And a connected service is a package of documentation and the actual library, as well as doing the setup work in your project to get you started. So it'll handle the authentication mechanism, and it'll build that into your application for you, so you don't have to go and learn, how do I authenticate with this service? It just, in the connected service that we have, it figures that out for you. So what it actually does for us is we're just using an application ID and key to authenticate, so it writes those out to a configuration file in your project. So that way when you go and make a request, you don't have to worry about writing code to authenticate. It just knows how to go and find the pieces of data it needs and send them to us to authenticate. It does require Visual Studio 2015, but hopefully people will be moving there soon anyways. So let's actually go over to Visual Studio, where I can show you stuff working out of Visual Studio. So in Visual Studio, I've built a small little application that has a terrible UI. I'm not a UI builder. I'm not a UI designer. And I'd like to keep it that way. So what I have is the same PDFs, but I have an application that is just asking me to open a PDF. So let's just grab our complex one. And what it's going to do is it's actually going to use our export form data service to get the data out of the form and to give me fields where I can just go type in information. So if I add information here, and let's just fill in this full name with a random piece of text, and hit submit, we should get back a output file. And in this case, what we have is, if you remember the data that I put in, to show that the calculations are also working, you'll see that in the input I put in a random character, a random string of characters, and in the field, in the PDF, we actually got back the calculated value instead. So if you supply us with a field, with data for a field that is supposed to be calculated, we ignore that data and stick in the calculated value instead. Because we just let the calculation scripts run over the PDF instead of trying to shove all of that data in there just based on what you said. And as you can see, the barcode appearance did update as well. So there's that. And now I've lost. Okay, PowerPoint. So other things that PDF WebAPI also offers are the ability to render a PDF to various image formats, to flatten PDF forms so that way you can view them anywhere you want, insert images as backgrounds or as content on page, and headers and footers, a few other things. So that's kind of actually everything I had, I guess.
Could you go back one?
Yeah.
And one thing to add to the header, footer, watermarks, and backgrounds is that we add them in a way that adds some additional information to the header, footer, background, and watermark so that they are completely interoperable with Acrobat. So you'd be able to, in most of the tools that I've seen that do this out there, you can just simply delete the header, footer, watermark, or background. It's not editable in Acrobat. The way that we do it, we add the extra information to maintain the editability in Acrobat if you've not secured the file. So one of the goals that we have in all the things that we do is that the resulting files are completely interoperable with Acrobat, and that's really 10 and higher. So we go back a few versions as well.
So headers and footers are added with the header and footer tag data, so that way Acrobat, if you just want to delete them, they're
Yep,
fine.
exactly. And we even support the same wildcards that they do for like date or page number and everything. All of that gets inserted. And part of how we're able to do that is that the tool set that's used was actually originally developed by Adobe. So we have some advantages in terms of knowing what's supposed to go where.
Yes.
So the PDF Web API, it's the online services, so we can call the API and get the result, or it's like an SDK package we download and can build.
So it is just a set of online services. We do also happen to have a library for .NET that makes it easy to make those calls.
Okay.
So we have a little bit of both aspects, but the service that you can sign up for is just a web service that you can go and call.
Do you want to talk a little bit about how it's licensed? Priced?
No, I don't want to go into. I don't want to be a salesman.
Or how people can play with it.
There.
Yeah.
That's on the last slide.
Actually, yeah. I mean, yeah. So you can start using Visual Studio. You can sign up at api.datalogics-cloud.com. There are free accounts. There are also paid versions that have different advanced features. But for the most part, it's a free service that you can go start using to build your applications. Yes?
Question is that obviously the backend server product is your proprietary product, so to speak.
Yes.
Is the API proprietary or is the API open?
The API is open. So actually,
Most of it is just JSON in terms of the options, so it's pretty easy to program against.
and you can see the documentation for these services up on our on our developer site. And so the APIs are all documented, so there's a service URL that tells you what's required to be able to make that request. So there's nothing really proprietary about it anywhere in terms of what the API is.
Do you see that there could be an opportunity for multiple providers to adopt a shared API or not?
I don't know. Could be. I'd be more worried about that depending on what Google comes up with in their lawsuit with Oracle for Java's APIs.
Well,
Because that would make things a lot more interesting in terms of having a shared thing that 4 different people use.
So is there a self-hosted license model?
Not currently.
There's not, but it is built, almost every one of the services, except for the rendering services, built on top of the Java toolkit.
Mm-hmm.
So, and...
It's a possibility if the money was there in the right scenario.
Well, if you're going to put it behind your firewall, there really wouldn't be a need to do it as a hosted service. You'd just run it on one of your own servers.
Right.
And run the samples that we've got that get you 90% of the way to where...
I'm not talking about for kicking the tires development or initial development. I'm talking about the live data. A lot of companies are they need to own the data because it may not even be their data, it's their client's data.
Yep.
And so they need to have end-to-end control of the entire stack.
Yeah. And that's exactly what it is. It's like if there's a market for that,
Okay.
then it would be an option.
All right.
But we haven't found that yet.
So you don't store data?
Correct. It comes to us, we process it, and it goes right out the door. Yeah.
I just heard you guys have an API to render PDF documents, say render a PDF page, something like that. But if I develop an application that render that's a PDF viewer on mobile platform, and I will allow my user to zoom in and zoom out a lot, I will imagine in that case, there are a large chunk of data going back and forth through your server.
Well, yeah, you probably would not want to use the rendering service that we have to render pages dynamically as people zoom or even browse a PDF file, because the way that the system works is the whole PDF file has to go up, right? So if you've got a 100-page PDF file, every time you want to zoom and get a new render for that page, every time you want a new page, all 100 pages go up. Oh,
Right.
So you're going to want to take that PDF, put it back into your own repository, and byte serve that sucker, to the user. You're not going to want to go back through these guys every single time somebody touches the screen and
it's
sits
not
on their phone.
It's not designed to be a viewer. Right. It's designed to rasterize PDF pages. Except the way that we rasterize it, we'll actually use Adobe's color engine. So it's the same color engine that's used for Photoshop and Illustrator and all those things. So you'll get accurate color, which is why that is the only service that does not use, or that uses the PDF library rather than the Java toolkit. It's just because we need that engine that does that. So if you wanted to create thumbnails of a PDF, like the first page of a PDF file, great application for that. If you wanted to dynamically serve up, just convert a whole document to an image for whatever reason, absolutely perfect use case there, but just not for the dynamic push-pull of that.
It's not a typical use case.
Well, it's just not designed for creating a viewer.
Right.
Really, and that's really what it is. So there are a lot of other use cases that are typical. It's just that the viewing use case is not one of the ones that we're really targeting with this particular application. And again, unless we were to put something on the client, there'd really be no way for us to accept only one page of a PDF file. Right? So it's just not conducive to that kind of use. Now, you could certainly do what some other vendors are doing with their systems, not our system, but they will take a PDF and convert it to an image, and they'll do it at several resolutions that their viewer supports, and then they'll extrapolate for any resolution that they need in between. There are several applications that do PDF advertising that do things that way. So that would be a possibility if one wanted to do it that way. Yes?
Yeah, question is support the annotation.
In terms of what kind of support would you be looking for annotations? Well, I'll start with no. But what would you want it to do?
Because you can deal with the form, right? So
Yeah.
my question is
Yeah, so we can import FDF for forms, but we don't do anything right now with annotations. Doesn't mean we can't. We just haven't focused on it.
And annotation is a different data type inside of a PDF than form data. They're
Actually, to us, it's all the same.
well, to you guys, but I mean, to the end user, they're viewed or managed in a different manner.
How about watermarks?
Yeah, as I mentioned, watermarks and backgrounds, headers and footers, all of that's supported. So with watermarks and backgrounds, you can upload either a PDF document and tell it what page you want, just like in Acrobat, as well as positioning, and basically we reproduce through JSON that entire UI in Acrobat. And you can also upload an image, and we'll do the conversion to PDF first, and then let you position that image. Sort of.
The watermark as an image.
Yeah, you can use an image, just like in Acrobat, any image format that Acrobat, actually not any image format, it's JPEG, PNG, TIFF.
Now you're getting
Single page
How about
TIFF.
text?
Or
What?
PDF.
As a text.
Yeah, you can do a text watermark. We reproduce that, sure, and you get a handful of fonts you can select from. That'll work. You can use a font that you name, but it will have had to already be embedded in that PDF file, and hope that the subset that you embedded has all the characters you need, but you can do it.
Yeah. I would say it's only JPEG and bitmap at this point.
Yeah,
So how complicated forms can be? So we use
it can be as complicated as long as they're not XFA, they can be as complicated as you want.
like the color, the background color, cells.
Absolutely, sure. Because we run the formatting scripts, even if you're using some formatting scripts that change the color of the text, whether it's, depending on whether it's positive or negative, we'll run that and render it correct.
And then what the format of the data is?
So the format of the data is,
The format of
yeah,
the
the
data that
data that
take
you
in.
upload is FDF, XFDF,
JSON, CSV, TSV.
right, and we even support, with the JSON format, if you create hierarchical fields on your form, you can support that as well. So you can have a field named name, and then first and last can be subparts of that. So you just create that hierarchy in the JSON. As long as the name, the key value pairs match up in the PDF document, it'll populate. And we treat form fields that are misnamed the same way as Acrobat does when you import an FDF. If your FDF contains 20 fields and none of them match the PDF, we just throw them on the floor, just like Acrobat does, and return back the file to you with the data. So you can have one set of data populate multiple forms that have different fields in them, and the same data will work, and it'll do what Acrobat does.
Yeah. So here's an example of the hierarchical JSON. So if you had name, you could have first and last.
So you guys differentiating, because I know in Acrobat you'll do like a name dot, last dot. So is that how you guys are handling it, or?
Yeah, it's kind of like that, yeah.
Okay.
It just becomes you have a object that has a field that's named first and last.
I'm just trying to figure out how to map the hierarchical naming convention inside of Acroforms to that.
So you can have, if it's a terminal field, it's just name, value.
Right.
Name, colon, value.
Right.
If it's a non-terminal field, it would be, and you have name, and then you want first and last to be underneath that. The value of name is just another JSON object with key value pairs.
Okay.
And you can go as far down that rabbit hole as you want to go. It'll just work.
We like that.
It's for different fonts within the cell, right? You can do different fonts.
Well, if we're just pushing the data in, you will have had to have already defined the font as you're authoring the form, and then it'll accept that. It'll use that font to generate the appearance.
Yeah. Is there any other question?
Can you digitally sign a PDF through your API?
No.
Not yet.
But there's a nice guy from DocuSign that looks like back there.
So if I have a stamp, for instance, within a PDF, that will be accepted.
What was the question?
If I will have a stamp.
A stamp in the FDF? No, we don't bring in the annotations quite yet. It's something that we're thinking about.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Personal